Last year's OneTouch Idol X by Alcatel managed to stand out with excellent value for money proposition as it offered a crisp 5-inch 1080p display, a 13 megapixel camera and dual SIM abilities for a third less than flagships with similar specs. This is Daniel from PhoneArena presenting its successor, the OneTouch Idol X Plus, which goes for the same price a year later, and we're taking it for a spin in order to determine if it's again a bargain offer. The Idol X Plus upgrades on the weakest spot of the Idol X, boasting the true octa-core MediaTek processor instead of the wimpy quad-core that we had last year, but the other main specs like the 5-inch 1080p panel have remained unchanged. Alcatel did add something extra besides the processor upgrade though, as the Idol X Plus here ships with JBL headset in the box and claims to have an enhanced audio output quality, which it calls hi-fi. Are these enough to warrant the same excitement as its predecessor? Let's find out.
We have to admit that we approached the Idol X Plus design with mixed feelings. On one hand, it is sufficiently thin and light for a 5-incher at 8.1mm and 130 grams. That's about as slim and heavy as the Galaxy S4, for example. On the other, it is not as svelte and feathery as the Idol X, whose dimensions are really impressive for a 5-inch phone. Moreover, the glossy back here feels a bit slippery to hold, again compared to the soft touch plastic of its predecessor. What the Idol X Plus inherits is the metallic alloy frame here around the side that allows for structural rigidity in a comparatively light chassis. The elongated design of the Idol X Plus, with its wide top and bottom bezels, is comparatively easy to operate with one hand. The phone is less wide than the Galaxy S4, for example, not to mention the S5 Xperia Z2 or the HTC One M8, all of which also come with 5-inch displays. Our only gripe with the design of the X Plus is the power lock key that's placed at the top here, making it a literal stretch to press on such a tall handset. The sides house 2 card slots. In our dual SIM version, they're both for the carrier micro SIM cards, whereas with the single SIM variant you get a SIM slot and a micro SD one. These protective flaps that cover those 2 card slots on both sides come with an orthodox design. They're completely flush with the metal rim around the phone with only a small pimple protruding at the upper parts. When you drag it with your nail or fingertip, the flap opens up so you can insert the SIM or memory card. Then you can slap it back down and a tiny magnet at the other end will lock it in place and keep it flush with the side surface. This pimple is tiny, however, so it sometimes takes a while to pick it and keep the flap open. The 3 capacitive navigational keys beneath the display are not the most responsive we tried, but do the job. They're thankfully backlit and the white light sipping through matches the small LED notification dot that's next to the earpiece slit. There's also a 2 megapixel front camera up there, as well as an ambient light sensor, which works like a charm, dimming the display gradually when the light goes down or blasting it up outdoors. With the phone's promise for a hi-fi sound come JBL branded in-ear headphones and what looks like a dual speaker set grills at the bottom. These are not 2 speakers, however, but rather mimic such an impression, while the phone houses just a single loudspeaker there. The 5-inch 1080 by 1920 pixels panel is of the laminated IPS LCD variety, meaning a tight, bright, low reflection package integrating the touch layer into the display itself. Its protection is guaranteed by the durable Asahi Dragon Trail glass, which is similar to Corning's Gorilla and the brand that Alcatel works with on all of its recent phones. With 441 ppi pixel density, the screen is a piece of beauty, showing no icon or text jaggers even if we explore it up close and personal. The color representation is largely decent when compared to the standard RGB gamut, with the most deviation occurring in the light blue and red hues. The white point is excellent, very close to the reference, so you won't notice overly cold or warm cast when using the display. The screen is pretty bright, we measured 447 nits and with good anti-reflection coating, meaning that you won't have troubles viewing it outside even as we test it under direct sunlight. Brightness and color shift slightly at extreme viewing angles, but again, nothing out of the norms for a good IPS LCD screen. Alcatel supplies a tidy OneTouch Android interface on top of Android 4.2 Jelly Bean with the Idol X Plus. This is 2 versions prior to the current KitKat, with no word whether this handset will ever get to Android 4.4. Its general looks are not far from the stock experience, with the lock screen contacts, wallpaper and notification bar graphics closely matching it. The lock screen shows date, time and weather or calendar, and you can swipe back and forth between the two without unlocking it. The iconography is big, colorful and begs to be tapped on. The most used apps have shortcuts placed directly on the home screen by default, and the rest are neatly arranged into categorized Google services, productivity, assistance, tools and games folders. Those folders are heavily populated with pre-installed stuff, from a Torch application through to Office versions and a few game-loved titles. Octa also throws in a few pretty hand-picked widgets for your weather, contacts or calendar duties. And we were delighted to see that the excellent SwiftKey app has remained the default keyboard option on the IdealX Plus, just like it was on the IdealX. The dock contains 4 icon shortcuts which can be rearranged and replaced to your heart's desire, and that about sums up the interface customizations that Alcatel has peppered on. Since we have a dual SIM device, the company has ensured a SIM management app is present as well, which lets you name and color your 2 connections as you please and set roaming preferences or restrictions for them. The weakest spot of the IdealX was the measly quad-core MediaTek chipset, but the IdealX Plus upgrades its innards well here. The processor is still MediaTek, but the new true octa-core one, clocked at 2 GHz. By true octa-core, MediaTek means that the 8 cores can fire on all cylinders at once, which is not that hard to believe given that the cores are still of the frugal and relatively weak Cortex A7 type. The benchmarks show that this new MediaTek chipset might not be in the ranks of Snapdragon 801 or even 800, but it certainly won't leave you asking for much more. The CPU scores slightly below Snapdragon 800 and above 600, but the graphics unit lags behind, being on par with the Snapdragon 600 GPU. The interface is fluid though, and the phone ran any app we threw at it, including heavy 3D games like Asphalt 8. Alcatel has placed 2 GB of RAM in the handset, aiding multitasking and loading times. We also get 16 GB of internal memory, of which about 13 are user available, plus a microSD slot, but only for the version with 1 SIM card. The stock browser on the handset renders pages pretty fast, and we had no issues with choppy scrolling or laggy panning. The browser is primed to render the pages in real time while zooming in and out, and the task is handled remarkably well, with barely a blur while zooming or panning. In addition, all text content looks crisp at this high pixel density, while text reflow works like a charm, snapping the columns into the screen with immediately. There's little skimping on connectivity options with Alcatel's finest. The IdealX Plus supports 42 megabits per second HSP plus download speeds, and HD voice if your European Asian carrier can supply the goods, as those are the regions that the phone is aimed at. The 2 SIM cards can hook up simultaneously on such speeds, but you can gobble fast data on one while talking on the other, for instance, as the phone is a dual SIM dual active device. The cards are also hot swappable, meaning you don't have to reboot the handset when inserting a new SIM card or taking one out. The handset just reloads the launcher, asks for your PIN if your cards have one, and that's that. We also get Wi-Fi, Bluetooth 4.0, assisted GPS, DLNA and FM radio roundup for the other connectivity options, with about the only thing missing being NFC. The Alcatel OneTouch IdealX Plus gallery sports grid thumbnail view and offers a rich variety of photo enhancements and editing options that are built right into the app's interface. Music playback is categorized by artist albums, genres and playlists in the player interface, and there are a bunch of equalizer presets to apply. The touted hi-fi sound that the IdealX Plus offers is a combination of hardware and software components. The phone offers one quality sound processor, a headphone amplifier, and a bunch of equalizers to choose from. The hi-fi sound is only available to you when you plug in a headset. We can attest that the sound output is pretty good, even when you plug in random in-ear headphones rather than the supplied JBL set. We measured the headphones output power to be stronger than average, and we also get a very good loudspeaker at the bottom of the IdealX Plus with strong and quite clean sound. Video playback support is stellar, with DivX XVD MKV files all playing without a hitch in up to 1080p resolutions. The player itself is rather bare-boned though, with just an extra loop function, so we'd recommend to quickly pawn off the video footage playback to third-party Play Store apps. The 13-megapixel shooter on the back of the IdealX Plus is paired with an LED flash, and we get a 2-megapixel camera at the front capable of 1080p video. The camera app interface is very intuitive, with a transparent background so that you can always follow the frame in front of your lens. There are HDR, panorama, 360, night and sports shooting modes, while from the more advanced settings only ISO up to 1600 and exposure adjustment sliders are present. There aren't any color effects to apply if you're into those, so you'd have to probe the Play Store for that. Most of the time the color saturation of the pictures is quite natural, representing correctly the scene in front of the lens without overblown or subdued hues. However, part of the photos we took in broad daylight have one unappealing cold cast to them. Exposure is largely correct in most circumstances, delivering true-to-life photos. Detail is plenty, as we would expect from a 30 megapixel shooter, and the noise situation is kept in check. The HDR mode takes quite some time to merge the photos, taken with different exposure settings, while the end result is rather unrealistic looking to boot, as if passed through an Instagram filter. When indoors or in other low light situations, the photos come out quite good as well, without an excessive amount of noise, even when the lights get dimmed down. The OD flash, however, is rather weak and didn't illuminate our test scene properly from the standard 5 feet distance. The frontal camera is spiced up with something Alcatel calls emoji shots, which takes 4 slow successive photos of your expression, giving you the time to adjust for the perfect selfie. Video gets captured with Full HD 1080p resolution and fluid 30 frames per second, but only in broad daylight. When you step indoors or the lights dim down, the frame count drops down to 17 frames per second, resulting in rather poor fluidity. It exhibits the same oversaturation as the stills, making the footage look more vivid than it actually is. Exposure adjustments while panning around happen quickly, and the handset supports continuous autofocus, though shifting back and forth between a close object and the background happens within 2 or 3 seconds sometimes.
When the OneTouch Idol X came last year, it was the thinnest, lightest and cheapest 5-inch handset with a good 1080p display. The Idol X Plus successor, however, will have a steeper climb ahead of it. Granted, the phone has remained relatively compact and has received important processor, battery capacity and storage upgrades, but the $400 launch price has remained unchanged. This puts it in direct competition with last year's flagships like the LG G2 or the Galaxy S4, which can now be found for the same price range. The Idol X Plus fights back with enhanced audio output and the JBL headphones that are included in the price, as well as stellar call quality and dual SIM functionality. But the software part pulls it back in the murky mainstream. It runs an older version of Android with a shady chance for update to KitKat or even beyond. Thus, the Alcatel OneTouch Idol X Plus remains a very good handset for the asking $400 price, but it will have to work much harder for the money compared to its predecessor. This was a video review of the Alcatel OneTouch Idol X Plus from PhoneArena. For more information about this and other handsets, you can visit us at PhoneArena.com. Thanks for watching.